This is Ashley Newby, and you're listening to the Black Studies Podcast, a Mellon Grant sponsored series of conversations examining the history of the field. Our conversations engage with a wide range of activists and scholars, senior figures in the field, late doctoral students, cultural workers, political organizers, and everyone in between in order to explore the cultural and political meaning of Black studies as an area of inquiry and its critical methods. On today's episode of the Black Studies Podcast, we'll be speaking with Leroy F Moore Jr. From Harvard to the Whitney Museum to Media Engagement for Disability in Johannesburg, South Africa, Leroy Moore has more than 20 years of activism, journalism, writing, lecturing on race and disability. Black disabled poet, activist, and author of 3 books on Black disabled issues, from poetry to children's books, to his recent graphic novel, Krip-Hop Volume 1, published in 2019 by Poor Press. After writing Black Disabled Art History 101 in 2017, he was visited more often by Black disabled ancestors who pushed him to write his book, in 2020, Black Disabled Ancestors, under Poor Press of Poor Magazine. Leroy F Moore Jr. is the founder of the Krip-Hop Nation. Since the 1990s, he's written the column Illin' and Chillin' for Poor Magazine, and then as a founding member of the magazine school, the Homefulness and Decolonize Academy. Moore is one of the founding members of the National Black Disability Coalition, an activist around police brutality against people with disabilities. Leroy has started and helped start organizations like Disability Advocates of Minorities Organization, Sends Invalid, and was an early thinker of disability justice. His cultural work includes film documentary, Where is Hope? Police Brutality Against People with Disabilities, several spoken word CDs, poetry books, and children's book. The Disabled Art History 101, published by Justice Press. Leroy F. Moore Jr. was part of the 2021 Emmy Award-winning song and film for the Netflix sports documentary film on Paralympics entity Rising Phoenix. Moore has traveled internationally, networking with other disabled activists and artists. He has written, sang, and collaborated to do music videos on Black disabled men. In July 2019, Moore, under Krip-Hop Nation, organized the African Disabled Musicians San Francisco Bay Area Tour with disabled musicians from Uganda, Tanzania, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Moore has won many awards for his advocacy, from the San Francisco Mayor's Disability Council under Willie L. Brown to the Local Hero Award in 2002 from public television station KQED in San Francisco. And in 2014, the San Francisco Bay View newspaper named Leroy Champion of Disabled People in the Media on Black Media Appreciation Night. In 2022, Leroy was chosen for one of the United States Artist Awards for his writing and poetry. In 2021, UCLA recognized Moore's work in hip hop and disability by accepting him as a PhD student in the Anthropology department. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Black Studies Podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Leroy F. Moore Jr., founder of the Krip-Hop Nation. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that you have done a lot of work at the intersection of hip hop and disability. And I'm really excited to talk to you about your research and activism.
Good. Let's go.
So, how did you get into doing this work, and how do you see the connections with Black studies to it?
Yeah, so, we started Krip-Hop Nation almost 25 years ago. Because I've always loved music, from the blues all the way up to hip-hop. And it goes back to my younger years, is that in the 70s, I used to go down my parents' basement and look at my father's record collection, because my father had a huge record collection. And I realized that most of the records I pulled out were Black men that had disabilities, from blues to soul. So it is not a mistake that now I am doing Krip-Hop after all these years. Being a Black disabled activist and poet, I wanted to see myself, more than in special education, so I wanted to see myself. So that's when I started Krip-Hop Nation, and also activists around Black issues and disability, and now trying to push Black studies into disability issues. So yeah.
Thank you. So I actually want to follow up on that. Where do you see the intersections um, of disability studies as a field and Black studies as a field?
Yeah, it has a long way to go. A long way to go. And unfortunately, um, back in I think almost 10 to 12 years ago, I was part of this national Black Disability Coalition, and we put together a Black disabled curriculum. Excuse me. And we traveled on campuses to present it, and very few took up our offer. And I realized then I was like, wow, Black studies real need real push to see disability as a political, historical, cultural issue. And
Mhm.
then the whole Black community needs that. Because of racism in the disability community, the Black community never got the political education around Blackness and disability. So it makes sense that Black studies still doesn't have the rich, deep history when it comes to Black disability issues. Even today, even when I'm sitting here at UCLA in my fourth year of my PhD program in anthropology, and I'm quote unquote cripping Black radical thinkers. So like what's Cedric Robertson. My whole master's thesis was to Crip Cedric Robertson. So we know that other Black groups have you know have include Cedric Robertson in their work. We have Black women that really put Cedric Robertson, in the work of Black women. We have Black gays and queers that really, Black radical tradition. I think it's time for Black disabled people to crip the Black radical tradition. And in my master thesis, I ended with a Dear Cedric Robertson letter, talking to my ancestor and saying that, because he was in Berkeley, and Berkeley has a rich history of disability activists. So in that letter, I was like, dear ancestor, I wonder if had a chance back then to learn about Brad Lomax. He was a disabled Black Panther at the time. So, just bringing the Black radical tradition into disability issues and disability spaces, and bringing disability into Black studies. And that's my whole PhD, trying to bridge that gap. And that's my whole life. I've been on a picket fence since I was born, disabled or Black. And on that picket fence, I had a chance to really do some organizing, do some research, when I was younger. I saw Porgy and Bess, and I freaked out. I was like, Mom, I'm on TV. Because that's the first time I saw a black disabled man on TV. So yeah, going all the way back to Porgy and Bess and coming now in my PhD program and, still trying to bridge that gap. And not only in the US, but worldwide. Cedric Robertson traveled the world looking for Black resistance, and I'm doing the same. I'm about to go to the synagogue next week in South Africa. So
That's so interesting. I want to. Would you like to say a little bit more about how you engaged in the cripping of Cedric Robertson for your master's thesis? And then
yeah,
looking at now, are you continuing with Cedric Robertson, or are you looking at some other people?
yeah, and today Cedric Robertson, also Walter Rodney. I have an article on the Krip-Hop website saying that I want the groundings with my brothers, Walter Riley did in his book Grounding. And come to find out, I think I talked to Robin DJ Kelly. He's here at UCLA. And I wrote an article talking about groundings. And Robert Kelly told me that in Jamaica, he also met with people with disabilities at the time. So taking that and really saying that I want to ground with my Black disabled brothers and sisters. That's why every time I travel, I go to the people, and it's the same thing that's gonna happen in South Africa. I'm talking to the people on the ground. So, Cedric Robertson, Walter Rodney, Sylvia Winters, all these Black radical thinkers, I think, need to be cripped and need to bring it into Black disabled spaces in the community, in the homes, then in Black studies. It's a trip. I've been on the college lecture circuit since 1996, 97. I never was invited to an age into the Black college, and that's I've been at Harvard, I've been everywhere else except Black universities and Black colleges. And I say that because I think the Black community needs to deal with their Black ableism. That's a term that I coined. Ableism is like racism, sexism, toward disabled people. And I say that there's a lot of Black ableism in our Black community because of. So we didn't have a chance to unlearn and to heal from that. And what I'm trying to do is saying, okay, let's come together and let's heal from it. So, little Leroy's and little Lisa with disabilities can come back home because they can't come home now because Black ableism, and that's hurting us.
I definitely think it's a really important topic that, as you said, is definitely under studied and talked about and appreciated.
Yeah.
So the work you're doing is super integral to Black studies and the Black community as we continue forward. Like, yeah.
I came up with this term called Afro Crip, trying to bring Black disabled people together worldwide. Excuse me. And so like Cedric Robertson, like Malcolm X. I learned that disabled people are worldwide, not only in the U.S. There's also been Black disabled movements. There was a Black disabled movement in London. There was a Black disabled movement in Toronto. Unfortunately, those two didn't last because of lack of resources and because of Black ableism, to tell you the truth. But today, there's a Black disabled movement in Brazil that's really kicking butt. But they don't get the bling media because they're going inward and not depending on the white disabled movement. And that's totally different what others did. So yeah.
That Do you think that there are lessons that can be learned from what's
Oh
happening
yeah.
right now?
Oh yeah. And that's the thing that I'm frustrated about. Even disabled scholars that get their PhDs, they only a few of them only concentrate on the U.S. They don't really tie it into international struggles. And if you say Black disabled PhDs, it's such a small group of us. You know, my friend just graduated a couple of days ago, Latif McLeod, and he's a Black disabled man, and he just got his PhD. So it's a very small amount of us, especially Black men with disabilities. So yeah.
So, I want to talk a little bit about the ways in which you're bringing together these multiple fields. Like, you've talked about bringing the Black radical tradition to disability studies and vice versa, but you are in the anthropology department, right? So, in terms of, like, the training of anthropology, how do you see the work that you do being situated within the multiple fields that you are drawing from?
hmm Yeah, that's a good question because the thing is too that UCLA came knocking on my door. I wasn't thinking about a PhD, and I wasn't definitely not thinking about anthropology. Matter of fact, I used to protest against just the anthropology department at UC Berkeley because I was in the Bay because UC Berkeley anthropologists had bones of Native Americans in the basement of UC Berkeley. So I used to protest against anthropology. So it's kind of strange to be in a PhD program. But also we gotta realize that Black anthropologists has been around, you know, Neil Hirschstein. Um the one I've been really talking about, I'll be talking about him in synagogue is the late John Langston Quatney. And John Langston Quatney was an anthropologist in the 70s and 80s, and he was also blind. so he had a disability. And in his book, The Dissenters, he went back to his community, I think in New Jersey or some on the East Coast, and interviewed real people, just original Black people, stay on the corner, doing such and such. And that's one that I really look up to. And I say, I'm following in his footsteps, and I want to do the same, to go back and, interview Black disabled people from around the world, from South Africa to Brazil to Oakland, because I don't think there's a book out there that really captures Black disability issues, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, so in thinking about your research then that you're engaged in now, um, what are you in the trip that you're getting ready to take, right? What is the research that you plan to engage in South Africa?
Well, in South Africa and also in Senegal, because I do Krip-Hop Nation, it's a double sword, of course, going there and interviewing, Black disabled people, but also hopefully opening up a chapter in Senegal for Krip-Hop. So the Krip-Hop has chapters all over the world. And our strong chapters are in Africa. We have a chapter in Tanzania, we have a chapter in Uganda, we have a chapter in South Africa. So through this trip, is especially in Senegal, is to try to open up the chapter in Senegal. In Cape Town, where I'm gonna be, is really connecting with the South Africa Krip-Hop chapter. And one of my big goals coming out of the PhD is to open up what we call a Krip-Hop Institute, where it'll be almost like a museum, but it'll be a place where people with disabilities and their parents can get political education. We also want a visual art gallery, because as you can see in the background, we have paintings. So we have paintings from around the world. Because I've been paying Krip-Hop artists to do artwork for the last 10 years. So we have paintings. We want a music studio so we can make our own music. And we want a library where we can collect Black disabled art, books, studies, and all that. So this Krip-Hop Institute is the goal of my PhD program. And of course, we want it to be in countries in Africa, like Cape Town and Senegal and things like that. So, because there's not one place where Black disabled people can go and see their history, hear their music. There's not one place in the U.S. There's a disability museum in upstate New York, but that's not what my vision is. My vision is really having a place to get first political education, so we can erase Black ableism. That's gonna come through education. Seeing that Harriet Tubman had a disability. Seeing that our ancestors had disabilities, and then they were kicking butt. Al Sharpton unannounced, and the guy Al Hitler, the blues singer that marched with Martin Luther King. So all these stories need to come together in one place so we can do that education.
So building on that, I wanna go back to where you talked about where, the curriculum you developed. Um, so do you wanna speak a little bit about what that curriculum included?
Yeah, back in that time, unfortunately, I'm not with the National Black Disability Coalition anymore. But at the time, the curriculum, because I help with it, include, some stories of our Black disabled ancestors. I have a book called Black Disabled Ancestors. So we have stories, we have dates, like I said, Al Hitler, um, so we have that, we have pictures and all that, So that makes the curriculum just the basic 101, getting the awareness, getting the stories out there. Then we can go deeper,
Mhm.
Um, I forget his name, but his last name was Hale. Come to find out that he was a black man with it this way, where he took the KKK to court back in, I think it was 1920 something like that. But he took the KKK to court, and after the court case, he realized that this country wasn't gonna protect him. So he led a group of black people to um to a country in Africa. So this black disabled man took the KKK to court and let his people out of racist U.S. Back in the I think 30s or 40s. So these are the kind of stories that we need to uplift, and it needs to be in curriculum in Black studies and disability studies. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so you mentioned, Black disabled ancestors. Are there other resources that we should be looking into or integrating into our Black studies departments and curriculums?
Oh, there's so many books coming out these days. Sammy Salk has a book called Dis, Dis, Black Disability Politics. It's a couple years old, but it's good. I'm looking at my library now. Um, there's so many books. Terry Rodland. He did a book about blues and blindness. Um, that oh, um, even hip hop. People don't know that proper Prodigy. He passed away a couple of years ago. Prodigy had sickle cell,
Mhm.
and his book, My Life, is a good book. Talks about his autobiography. He does also talk about sickle cell in that book. MF Grimm, another hip hop artist, has a graphic novel out that talks about his hip hop journey and you know getting shot way before 50 cents. So yeah, these books are out there. You know, I tell parents just Google. Parents today have it a little bit easier than my parents. So that, and of course, my books, Black Disabled Art History 101, it's been out, and I got a couple of graphic novels, Krip-Hop Volume 1, and Volume 2, I'm working on Volume 3. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is important that we access these resources and make sure that these conversations are being had.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, black studies really need it. Really needs to be open. That's one thing I learned about being in graduate school, and just being honest, that departments don't talk to each other. It's the strangest thing I ever seen in my life. It was like, are you serious? Because I'm an organizer. I'm an activist, and they come here and seeing that departments don't talk to each other. For example, recently, I've been contacting my department to see, because I want to do a talk back after I get back from synagogue in Cape Town, to do a talk back with the African American Studies Department, my department, and so the Disability Studies Department and the Music Department. And it's so far, it's like, oh, that's too hard. It's like, why is it too hard? It's like, I tell people, like, I organize a tour, an African disabled tour around the Bay Area. Got disabled African musicians from the Congo, Tanzania, South Africa, to all come to Berkeley, California, to my little 6-8 apartment. And we did a whole tour. And I did that on SSI dollars. So if I could do that on SSI dollars, you just, yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah, that's one thing I learned the hard way, is that graduate school, it's yeah. I'm so glad that I'm older. You know, I know my way, but it's a trip.
Yeah, the institutions are there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape for no reason. But so I wanted to ask you, although you've kind of addressed this, so if there's other things that you want to say, that's fine. If you want to say, I've answered that question, you can do it. But what excites you most about the past of Black studies?
What excites me most about the past? Um, I think. Well, the past. I think the past was more radical
Mhm,
than today. I mean, if you look at not all, but our ancestors, W.E.B. Du Bois, and you know, Cedric Robertson, once they became really radical, it was hard to get the university on board.
mhm,
Um, so so to to I think really I would like to see Black studies really come back to the community and really bring back the radical voices. Um, yeah, yeah, and once again, to open up to disability, and did to receive that education, about the radical side of Black disability history.
So that kind of also addresses the next question I was going to ask you, which is, um, what are the fields or the questions? What are the areas that we should be moving towards in Black studies? Which I think that this entire interview qu- uh, conceptualizes the fact that we definitely need to have more research on Black disability studies. Are there specific areas of that that excite you as we move forward?
Like I say, these new Black disabled authors come out with their books. That's really exciting. I would like to see once again Black studies connect with Black grassroots organizations. You have the Malcolm X grassroots, organization, York, you know, hopefully Krip-Hop Institute, partner with community organizations, and really do the partner because, sometimes, and for me, being on the college lecture circuit since the late 90s, I see it. I saw it. You get a little gift certificate and that's it. But I really want them to really to go deeper when you're um collecting connecting with community organizations. For example, the Krip-Hop Institute, we would love to have, and we want to have, scholar reports and books around Black disabilities, and that's one area that a university can help us, do that. And when the Krip-Hop Institute is out, the university can come to us and bring their class to the Krip-Hop Institute. So going back to like Frida Kahlo, Frida Kahlo had class in her bedroom. You know, class don't need to be in an institution all the time. It can be, in the community. And once again, I didn't bring this up, but I learned this. One place was Poor Magazine. Poor Magazine's been doing community education, radical education for decades. So Poor Magazine in the Bay Area, they have their own school, they have their own radio. They're building houses. So I learned from them.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add or end on?
Good. I just want to say, thank you for having me on because, yeah, I don't get on Black YouTube channels, So thank you, and yeah, it's really important, and hopefully I'll be back when I'm done with my PhD program, and the opening of the Krip-Hop Institute. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so, so much for being here and for all of the information that you shared. It's a very important topic, and it's an area that many of us need to do better in. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.